Welcome to Guardians of the Data. I'm your host, Ward Balzerzak. Each episode will explore the passions, expertise, and real-world experiences of security leaders who are helping the future of data security and governance. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Centra. To learn more about our AI-powered data security platform, please visit centra.io. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Guardians of the Data. My guest today has worked in cybersecurity for over 20 years across industries like automotive, financial services, software, and manufacturing. He's the founding director of the Ohio River Valley Cloud Security Alliance, currently a director of data protection and security architect at a financial services organization. Kevin Feck, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ward. I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Glad we were finally able to get this going.
Couple speed bumps, little challenges, yeah.
Yeah, well, we got there, though. So, Kevin, in your professional opinion, what's the biggest challenge organizations are facing with data security?
So I've got multiple answers to that. I think the biggest one that's in everybody's face today is AI. And I hate to be that boy that cries wolf or join onto that AI panic train. But I do think I've always been a data security guy. I've been a security architect for, I don't even know. Formally for probably 16 years. I've been doing information security for 26, I guess now. And I've always focused on the data more than I focused on the technology, because in my mind, it was always the technology is there to support and secure the data, right? And people get lost in that, especially in IT space. We're all geeks and nerds, or whatever you want to call it these days. I don't know which one of those is pejorative. I don't know, but we all like technology, and we all get consumed by the newest flashy object. But for me, it's always been about the data. Tell me what that data is, and I'll tell you how much I have to care about it from a security perspective. And I think so. I've always been that way, and I think AI and Copilot and any of these LLM models, where I can put my own data in it, or I can have that data go and find answers for me across networks that may not be secure, has extrapolated that risk exponentially. And I'm not trying to be that boy that cried wolf, but what used to take me weeks or months or forever to go out and Splunk data resource. I mean, go search file shares. Which one can you get into? Which one can you not? Let's go find sensitive data. Same thing with SharePoint and sites like that, right? Before AI come along, it was all manual Splunking, and you probably set off some alert and alarm somewhere. And Copilot now can go find that for you in a matter of seconds. So it has really exacerbated the issue with properly securing data according to its value, according to the risk, and according to regulatory repercussions.
Totally agree with you. And yeah, like when I started on this podcast, I was like, man, I hope we don't talk a lot about AI. But here's the thing. Like, I mean, as you know, right, being in the industry like myself, you can't go onto LinkedIn, you can't go onto the internet, you can't go to a conference without seeing or hearing AI. And I was actually just at one earlier this week. I was at the Innovate conference down in Marco Islands. First and foremost for the listeners, if you're not involved with Innovate, you definitely should go. No, I don't get paid by them, but man, was it amazing. I share that to say,
The location by itself is enough, right? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful Florida this time of year. Absolutely. But everybody, all the leaders I talked to had an AI concern. And a lot of it was either understanding what kind of AI is in place, right? Shadow AI and all that, obviously a big issue, but shadow services is not new at all. And the other one was, what the heck does my AI have access to? Which also not a new problem, underlines what you just said, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It extrapolates all those issues that we've known about in the past, but not really ignored, but they weren't high enough risk to raise up like they are now. But now it's just something you can't ignore. You just can't. It's in your face. And if you don't secure that data, it's going to get exposed.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's a big problem. We all know it. It's been around for a long time. How are you proposing it's being solved today? Like, what are you trying to drive to actually try to solve this issue?
Well, one of the big initiatives that I am working on is securing my Emperor 65 data, right? Um, obviously well, not obviously, but we're a Copilot shop. Copilot is great. It has changed the way I work. It has made creating security documents or security literature so much easier and quicker. And, I don't have to worry about all of the grammar and everything else I used to have to worry about in the past. It does that for me. I just have to read the content. Being able to put my basic needs in a prompt and have it scour my resources, have it scour my repos and create documents for me has made me better at my job and way more efficient. So my company's first goal this year with a limited AI footprint, and I say that knowing all about shadow AI, right? But with a limited authorized AI footprint is securing that M365 data. Um, and we are a data classification shop. We are a DLP shop that actively blocks certain data types. But the tools that we currently have today are limited in functionality. They're regex based, they're pattern based, they're recognition based of certain very specific documents. And there's only so much you can do with that, right? So, I mean, I don't have to tell you because I know you're in the same space, but I have low hanging fruit policies in place where I will block certain data types going outbound, but I have to tune that so much to get my false positive rate low that I know that I've got false negatives. I know I've got good data getting out because somebody left a hyphen out of a social security number or left the keyword off, right? So for me, it's moving beyond those basic tool sets that I have today. And honestly, I'm trying to fix my AI problem with AI. I mean, you just can't make it up, right? So I'm saying, hey, what tools and technologies out there can help me get beyond a regex to identify all my sensitive information across my SharePoint, OneDrive, and team sites, right? Granular data classification, contextual data classification, and then I can correlate that sensitive data with the permissions on that data, right? And I can lock that down. And then when somebody spins up a Copilot chat, or one of the agents, one of the Copilot agents, and it can scour basically any of my M365 instances, I know that I've got my sensitive data locked down to authorized users. So that's the number one goal for me in 2026 and probably early 2027 is securing my M365 instance, simply because we're a Copilot shop. And, up until recently, I think that our security team was seen as a roadblock for opening up the floodgates on AI because we knew, right? Because we knew that data wasn't as secure as we needed it to be. And we have to be seen as a business enabler because they're going to find a way anyways. So getting that M365, those data repositories up to speed so we can enable a business to do their AI usages is a huge, huge win for us in the company.
I really love something. I really love a lot of what you said there, Kevin. But something I want to call out for the listeners is your goal is scoped, right? A lot of folks I talk to, they're like, "Oh yeah, we have an AI problem, and we're going to look to conquer the world, right? We're going to look to understand all of our data repos, all of our data, and all these things." And a lot of these conversations I end up having, I say, "Why?" Right? That's my first question. Why are you looking to do? Right? What are you really trying to drive? And obviously the why is, well, we're scared, right? We're worried about all these things. And unfortunately, the logical conclusion, as you know, because you are scoped, is you're not going to be able to do that ocean on day one, right? You're not going to be able to do all the things, at least not well, and be able to stand behind it and say, look, we are secure. So I really love that you said, hey, we are using for you, it's M365, for someone else, another listener, maybe your AWS, whatever it is, right? Figure out what is your use case, what are you trying to do, and go after it.
I think if you try to boil the ocean, it's kind of like multitasking. People want to believe that they're good at multitasking, but really you're giving partial effort to everything you're doing. And it's kind of like the old school data protection mentality, right? Some companies, a lot of companies thought, well, I'm not going to do data classification. I'm going to protect all my data the same. which means you're really not protecting any of your data well. So you've got to contain your scope and go after what's most important as a priority.
Yeah, that's also another really good point. And they're still out there, right? I think now, at least what I'm seeing and hearing, people again are saying, "Holy cow, we need data classification," which, by the way, is amazing. I've tried to push those initiatives for years and have had mixed
With
results.
pushback too, right? With a lot of pushback.
Right, right. That's against our culture. That's going to be impactful, right? I mean, you name it. And I think a lot. I'm curious your thoughts on this, Kevin, because you've been around for a while too with data security. I feel like data classification efforts for years have failed prior to AI due to the manual nature of data classification. How do you feel about that statement? Do you agree?
I agree. I've seen companies that said we will not do data classification. Those companies are now doing data classification because there's no way to protect all data the same and do it well. Um, and it is I mean, there's always been players on the market who would automate that for you, at least to some degree, right? You'd spend a lot of time in tuning because they were regex based, but you could get that done. When we rolled out data classification at my current gig, um, half the difficulty was changing the culture, getting people to understand that data, why it's important, right? Getting them to correlate sensitive business data to their own sensitive data, right? Would you leave your health records on the street? Then you should probably be a little bit more careful with somebody else's health records, right? Just getting them to understand the impact and the sensitivity of that data and handle it properly has been and it still is the biggest challenge, right? We are a data classification shop. Like I said, we've got DLP in place for blocking certain data elements if you don't have a need to send it. And we still struggle with that. We still have vendors come up to us, not vendors. We still have individual users come up to us and say, I always change my classification to this. And I'm like, well, that's, and getting people to understand that, personal data is what they own, right? You shouldn't be changing company information to personal unless you actually physically own it, right? The cultural changes is huge. And if you go to companies where people, you've got people who've been working in administrative roles or office roles for many, many years. And they were here before we had all these PII and privacy standards and all of that stuff, right? And keeping up with that stuff is not part of their daily job. So you've got a lot of education. We do training videos, we do security awareness videos, we quit cards. It is a very large effort to get people to understand and I know where you're going with this. I don't care how good your tool is. A tool will never, ever be 100%. If you don't educate those users and have those users actively helping you, your tool will be defeated.
You gave me the perfect pivot on that, sir. So something you had said, which I also agree with, by the way, I probably wouldn't have agreed with you a couple of years ago, but fighting AI with AI was what you had said, right? Kind of fighting these new AI solutions with like AI enabled tooling or whatever, right? I don't. It doesn't have to be tooling.
My robot beats your robot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's interesting, right? Because these tools are coming in. Certainly vendors are also innovating. You said before you've gotten more efficient by use of copilots. So have I, right? I'll raise my hand. I didn't think I would. I thought I was going to be the naysayer forever, but I'm definitely leaning in now. Um, so fighting AI with AI. There's still an AI piece to that, right? Which obviously is, from a security perspective, a little bit concerning. For those organizations that are starting to look at AI-enabled technologies, which is just about everything at this point, what do you think they should be looking at, right? To make sure that even though it is a defense technology with AI, then it's still not going to be a point of a data security issue.
Right. Some of that comes down to your vendor assessments, right? I do a lot of vendor assessments with my job too. And, I'm I'm always concerned when a new vendor comes in front of me that has been in business 1 or 2 years. How mature are they, right? Heck, it takes you what? It takes a year or two to actually get a SOC 2 Type 2, right? So if they're a year-old business, how mature is their security program? If they've got their lead for IT also doing the security, has that guy ever been 100% dedicated to security? Back to the multitasking again, too. If you're in charge of the chickens and the chicken and the coyote, right? Which one are you going to preference? So I always look at the maturity of my vendors. Obviously, a lot of the big names have more money to throw around. The attraction for a lot of the more immature vendors is the price. They just want to get established, so they'll sell your company a tool that does similar to what a big vendor does for one quarter of the price. But then in the background, they have no security program. They have no SOC 2 Type 2. They have no guy who's ever really just been 100% into security before. So I think you have to you have to lean also hard into your vendor management. You have to make sure you can have an adequate level of trust with every vendor that you have that's handling sensitive information for you, right? Because are they cloud first? If they're cloud first, then they're in one way or another, they're pulling your data into their environment. Well, if you've got a SOC 2 Type 2 and they're scanning your environment for sensitive data and they got 1 year of security experience and they really don't know what they're doing, then you're exposing your data, right? So I guess that's a short answer.
Yeah, yeah, and we could actually expand that, right? So we were specifically talking about security, but third party risk, right? We see this all the time. We see, hey, here's a compromise, but it wasn't us directly. It was, either one or two factors away due to a third party risk. And, again, just about any tool today is getting some sort of AI.
Absolutely. Well, different levels of AI, right? Different levels, right? Sometimes they say it's AI and it's really machine learning, right? Sometimes it's actually a full-blown LLM. Is it their LLM or are they using Anthropic's LLM? Do they have a do not train, do not retain agreement with Anthropic, or are they exposing my data? There's a lot there. You actually have to have a very solid AI governance program at your company if you're going down the AI path. You have to have people in place who understand actually what AI is, right? You've got to have your lawyers. You've got to have your procurement personnel who understand contract. You have to have your security people and your technologists who actually understand what they mean when they say AI. Because I don't care if you've got the old fashioned machine learning that does an if and then statement, as soon as AI became the buzzword, you change it to now I'm an AI shop, even if you got the old technology. So you better understand that from a technical perspective or get people who do.
What's actually funny is you're right, right? Like the term AI has been around for a very long time. It's been around in the vendor space for a very long time. But you are right. You lift up the hood, and for many years it was machine learning that they were calling AI. And it's sure you can call it a flavor of AI in a way, but it's really not, at least not up to today's standards. So very, very good point.
If I can expound on that a little bit more, right? So you've got vendors AI, you've got vendors AI that they want to run in their compute. And then you've got vendors AI that you can run in your compute. So you've got more control, right? But just because you have control of that AI doesn't necessarily mean you should put your regulated or highly sensitive data in that AI, right? We go back to privacy standards. I'm a huge privacy guy. The reason that you've collected and processed that data, can you justify that reason by putting it to that AI? A lot of times contractually and legally they can, but you need to make darn sure, right? Because that's another usage of that data. And if you put that regulated, like take GDPR, for example, or some other really stringent PII regulation, you put that data in your locally governed LLM and in that locally governed LLM where you're doing a lot of analytics on it, you've got a lot more people with access to that data than it would have been just in production processing. If you've got a breach, that could be pretty destructive to your company and your reputation.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. There's a new role coming into corporate America, a newer role that, we didn't really see a whole lot. I've actually, by the time this episode airs, another episode will air. There's now kind of the head of responsible AI type titles out there, head of AI and whatnot, because they are becoming those experts, right, on what it is. They are working very closely with security, procurement, whatever, legal, certainly, to get their arms around, like, what the heck is this thing? How do we use it? How should we use it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every company who's going down the AI journey, for lack of better words, right, is looking at that AI office. And what's funny is like, how can anybody be super experienced with AI when it's really been only a big thing for a couple years, right? Or not even that long. So your expert may only have a year of experience under his belt, right? So at least the company's allocating resources to take it seriously, no matter how long AI has been out, or no matter how many years that person has experience.
Well, and it kind of goes back to, and they're not even really jokes these days. It is reality, but like all those memes and stuff you see about like job postings, like, hey, you need to have 5 years of this technology, and that technology's only been around for a year. Like, we're going to start seeing that with AI. You need to have 10 years. Like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, commodity, AI, real AI has not been around for 10 years. What the heck, guys? Like, we're going to see that. It's just,
That's exactly correct.
unfortunately, the nature of the beast.
And it evolves almost on a daily basis. So
Right. Yeah, so keeping up with it is completely crazy. Um, Full-time job, just like us in security. So Kevin, I wanna go back to the idea of not boiling the ocean, and I'm not looking for specifics on what you're doing, but, hey, you said, "Hey, we're starting with this thing, right? And we're gonna get our hands around it." That's kinda your 2026, 2027 initiative. When it comes to expanding that scope, how are you looking at that, right? How are you determining, okay, cool, mission either mostly or complete here. Now I'm going to go to this thing. What's driving you? How are you planning for that?
it's based on what I'm responding to, which is not the best answer, right? I wish I could just tackle all things, and I wish I could consult my crystal ball first and tackle the most important things that are going to be a priority next year. But like, obviously, like I said, we're a Copilot shop, so we're going after Copilot data. You and I both know that it's a matter of time before they start connecting Copilot to your on-prem file shares. It's a matter of time before they say, you know what, Copilot's great, but they're a little slow. We want to connect Anthropic to your whatever share, to your Snowflake, to this, to that. So really, I'm going after what I see. I'm trying to pay attention to what the business is doing, even though those priorities seems to change on a regular basis. And I'm trying to respond or be as proactive as I can for what I see coming down the pipeline. Obviously, like when I talk about AI readiness, which I haven't said on this show yet, but like you talking about AI readiness, well, you should have had AI readiness a couple years ago, but nobody could do that, right? So now I'm leading AI readiness after it's already out of the barn, right? So trying to get, I know that that's my priority today. I know other things are coming. Like as soon as I get done with my M365 data, or at the same time, but at a slower pace, I want to apply the same technology and the same processes to my on-prem file shares. You know, I if I currently have a DSPM for my cloud data lakes. It's a different technology. And this is probably something you'll want to talk about as well, is like, most of us have all these disparate technologies across our environment. You might have something that does data classification on your on-prem file shares. Chances are, you have a different tool that does your Snowflake instance, and then you might have a different tool that does your M365 instance. Um, and then you've got file shares too. You've got databases, file shares, M365, and data lakes. And they're probably all different tools. And you've got contracts with each of those vendors. And you're looking 2 or 3 years down the road when those contracts run out. Can I consolidate? I hate to say this word because I always think these are buzzwords. That single pane of glass, right? From a data.
No, you said it.
I
You
did. I'm
said
sorry.
it.
We have to drink. I didn't bring a, but, I mean, it's that how do I protect data holistically if I've got different tools that are protecting or monitoring data in different environments. So, and not only do I have contractual reasons that slow down the consolidation of my tool sets, but I've got capability gaps, right? You've got some players on the market who are market leaders in using AI or LLM or intelligence to classify and protect data. And then you've got the other ones, the big dogs on the market, right? Your big names who are using older technology. Well, if a year from now, I have the firm opinion that a year from now, if you're not using real intelligence in the DSPM or the data security market, you're probably going to either be out of business or you're going to be that little checkbox. that people use when they just need to say, I've got a DLP, I've got a DSM. It really doesn't do anything. It monitors a bunch of stuff. It doesn't block anything because I can't trust it, right? But I've got it. And then everybody else is going to be like, they're going to be allocating funds to make sure that they can at least keep up with their competition.
Well, I think that so also completely agree with everything you just said. I think that piece that you just hit on though, the checkbox, I feel like that's been a problem in our industry for a long time, right? Like some companies, they still unfortunately look at security as a cost center, right? And instead of a business enabler, like, oh yes, we understand we need firewalls. Oh yes, we need AV, whatever. And check the box, right? Unfortunately, which is why so like I mentioned earlier, I was at a conference this week. I got to meet and talk to a lot of folks. I had one individual that came up to me and said, "Hey, Ward, I've got," to what you're saying before, "I've got 3 solutions that do this thing, all right? I've got something for on-prem. I got something for cloud. I got something for this thing." I was like, "Oh boy, how you liking that?" "I hate it," right? Different rule sets, different capabilities, different gaps. He's like, "I'd love to get to one." And long story short there, through the conversation, we came to the realization together like, "Oh, shoot, there is not one that can do every single thing across the board."
At least to that 80% rule, right? So
Exactly, and that's actually where the conversation went, like, "Can we do most?" And we started talking through it. I was like, "You know what? Yeah, like, absolutely." But I feel like and we've been doing this for years in security, but I think with AI and trying to keep up, I feel like the better together story with solutions is even more important these days than finding something that can check all the boxes, right? Like I'm seeing and hearing a lot of companies, if they have a solution that's not great, they can get rid of it, but it's not going to be assured that they can get something back to replace it, right? Or get something that's same or less cost to get it. So I feel like we're getting into that industry where better together is kind of the name of the game. Integrations, tightly coupling, whatever. Are you seeing the same on your side?
I think the better together is a lot better than not have than missing coverage, right? I'd rather have 5 tools doing DSPM and work out a way to share that intelligence across that tooling than I would to have gaps, right? I like I said, I think better together is exactly the right choice. And I do think that I'll go back to what you said earlier about security being seen as a cost center, sometimes seen as a necessary evil. Um, I think, and you had to have it for regulatory reasons, or you had to have it for business partners assurance. And now, I mean, it has really brought data security to the forefront. If you want to use this data and connect it to all these different AIs that you probably don't manage, you better be securing that data. I 100% like my AI readiness project is 100%. Well, not 100%. Because I'm a security guy and it's never 100% about the business, right? But it is 100% a business enabler, right? And we know that if we get in the way, people will, either executive management will overrule us, right? Or people will find a way to get around you. So 100% a business enabler.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you use the term AI readiness. It's actually been that's been a trigger phrase for me as of lately, right? Because you see and hear a lot of people say AI readiness, and what's funny is when I have these conversations with folks, everyone realizes like it's not really readiness for a lot. It's not really readiness because the cat's out of the bag. You even admitted it yourself. It's more like, oh shoot, like I now need to secure this thing that's already in place, or like I'm sprinting in the marathon to try to catch up with the leader here, essentially.
Absolutely. It really is. It's playing catch up, at least for now. Um, I think I hate to say it, but I think to some degree we're always going to be playing catch up because there's unless you've got a crystal ball, you have no idea what's coming next, right? So, and there's always going to be additional data sources, right? So, yeah. Hey, it's interesting nonetheless.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Kevin, an old school data security guy like myself, how excited? I mean, you mentioned it, right? Data security is finally getting the forefront again. How excited are you about that?
I'm thrilled. You know what? And this is same as you. It's not me patting myself on the back. but maybe to some degree it is. But we've been screaming from the mountaintops about data security, about data protection, and about how it always comes down to the data for our entire careers. Your firewall is great, your zero trust is great, but they're all protecting the data and the processing of that data. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing you've got. And there's no way you can protect it all the same and achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve. So I'm very excited that it's all about data protection now. And back to the and this is, I swear this is not a DSPM commercial, but back to that vertical is just amazing. That vertical has blown up, and the convergence, like I said before, the convergence of that, I have no idea where that market will be in a year, right? With all these different players, with all their different capabilities, it is very interesting. And I was reading an article this morning, and it was talking about CSPM, right? Your cloud security posture management, and how it was always like at the interface or the machine level or the blob storage level, and how DSPM is that natural iteration beyond CSPM, right? Because if I've got a blob storage with public information and it becomes internet accessible, how much do I care? I might care about defacement, but that's probably all I care about. It's much different than if that's sensitive information. So it's actually now zeroing in on the actual target. So I feel very good about it. I finally feel like from a career wise, I'm in the right space, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was me, right? So I started in this about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, and I did a lot of consulting around it. Mainly government because they got a lot of sensitive data, right? Like they got to secure it. But I remember the last job I was at, I was trying to get a DLP uplift going, and I remember going to my leadership and saying, like, we need this. Here's why we need it. And they said, okay, bring out the Gartner MQ. Let's talk about it. I said, it doesn't exist. There is no Gartner MQ anymore for DLP. And I kind of talked through them, like why and how they're doing it now. And unfortunately, the output, at least the initial output of that conversation was, oh, well, if Gartner doesn't have an MQ, like we don't need it. And I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And it goes back to what we both just said.
It's just word that says we need it. If they brought in a Gartner consultant and they said you needed it, then maybe they might pay attention, right?
Well, see, and that's the thing, right? We did, and I'm picking a Gartner a little bit here, but I had similar conversations with the others, Forrester and some of the others, and the problem statement, right? Kind of going back to what we were just saying, the problem statement was, for many years, organizations didn't really pay attention to data security, right? They paid attention to the perimeters. Let's make sure we're secure. Perimeter is there. You can't get out. They paid attention to the EDRs, right? EDR is still hot. They paid attention to the NG, firewalls, all that. Identity, right? Identity's getting huge too again. But folks said, look, our data's fine. It's behind the walls. Yeah, controls might be squishy, but whatever. But boom, AI, copilots, all that hit the market, and surveys said your data is not secure. Congratulations.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. It was all castle moat. It was all perimeter. People thought that all of those things were data protection, and that's just not true. You have to identify that sensitive data, and you have to correlate it along with permissions. Otherwise, it is exposed. It may not be. It'll be exposed externally because people will find a way to exfiltrate it, but it's also exposed internally, which is also a problem that people, to some degree, I mean, we've always cared about internal exposure, but not nearly as much as we do now with AI.
Right. It's made it easier, right?
Yep.
It's made the insider risk either, unintentional or malicious, right? It's made it that much easier for them to execute whatever they want to execute, whatever they want to
Yep.
do.
And I think when you go back to that old school mentality too, right? You start thinking about, like internet gateways, right? I'm going to block all the AI sites, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about somebody exposing my data via AI, which is just not true. Number one, there's like 500 LLMs on the market today that are actually ranked. So there's probably another couple hundred that aren't ranked, and there's going to be more tomorrow. So there's no way you're going to block all those. There's no way you're going to use an internet gateway that 100% has its categorization correct, because no tool can be 100% correct. Then you get into things like, can that user install the Feck client for the AI on their machine, right? Because they're going to exfil it over HTTPS. So you just got exposed that way. So it really does come, it's all becoming data centric at this point. Finally, it always should have been, but it's finally data centric.
Yeah, it makes me happy about my career path, right? Because for years I was like, is data security the right thing? Like, I feel like it's drying up, and now it's like, oh man, yeah, it is.
I mean, it wasn't sexy, and it didn't get the attention that it got for a very long time.
Well, Kevin, we've said a few times now, you and I have both been in the industry for a while. We're both getting a little long in the tooth, I guess. But I'm curious. You've been doing data security for a while. What was your journey? How did you get to be the leader you are today?
I started off as a server guy. I was working at a law firm back in the day, and we brought in our first firewall. And we had a vendor hook it up because I knew nothing about firewalls at that point. Our internet egress and ingress. I got to see all of the attacks that were being run against that law firm on a constant basis. And I absolutely fell in love with it because it wasn't just building another Windows server today, standing up another database today. There was somebody actively trying to exploit and, defeat our defenses. So that's how I fell in love with security. And from that point forward, I never took another straight IT job. It was always security focused. Um, I think that, a lot of people, some of the best people that I see in security, I think there's two different buckets. I see a lot of people in security who are technologists, really strong technologists. Um, and they usually try to do the right thing, but their real core focus is technology. And then I see another bucket of people that are people who have a drive to do the right thing. They are the protect people. They're those kind of sheepdog people, right? They would have been a fireman or a police officer, but they realized those jobs may not pay enough. So they go the IT security path, right? So I think that, I see those two buckets, and I've always been in the latter bucket. I've always been that person who tries to do something meaningful and more meaningful than just standing up another operating system, right? How can I protect my company's data? How can I protect my individual's data? I mean, so much of this, you'll get me going down a rabbit hole here, but so much of the data that companies process doesn't belong to them. I'm going to put my privacy hat back on and say, that's not your data. I've worked at companies before where we paid all of our attention to PCI data because we had PCI regulations, right? And you had to maintain those in order to be able to process credit cards. Well, we also had banking account information, right? So as you know, like if I lose your credit card information, the most you're out is probably $50. More than likely, you're not out anything. I lose your bank account information. You may not be able to feed your family for a week or 2 weeks or longer. So I've always fallen into that camp where I went after data security because it was a passion of mine, because I could feel like I was doing something bigger than just earning a dollar. So long story short, that's why I went that way. And then I've gradually worked my way up. I think, I had quite a few jobs in technology in the beginning. I got my CISSP, I think in 2007, worked for a major auto manufacturer, and then worked for a clinical research organization, which gave me HIPAA exposure, which I really cared about. A lot of people related data. My next job was at a clinical research organization that had a lot of individual data. So I found it easy to get out of bed in the morning and go protect those individuals' data. It wasn't just, and not to make light of it, because you care about protecting your business information, right? You care about protecting your company. You've got your friends and maybe family that work there. You've got your own paycheck that comes from that. Maybe your company treats you very well and you want to protect that. But you can also take it down to the individual level and protecting those individuals. So I went from that to a major credit card processor where, like I said, they had an emphasis on PCI data, but maybe not data that was more impactful to the individuals that processed it to my current business. But I've always found the ability to draw excitement and passion about doing the right thing in security based on individual impact, probably more than anything.
I love that. I mean, passion is so important, and I'll share on the data security side. So I've built and led teams and programs data security for years, and the way I interviewed folks, certainly, do they know the space, right? If I have a DLP role with a certain technology, do you know that technology is a piece of it, obviously? But I remember still to this day, I don't remember the individual's name, but I remember still to this day, The strongest person on paper, I was interviewing him. I was like, oh man, like this is going to be a layup. And he said one thing, actually one phrase that made the absolute yes, right? The shoe in to like, nope, not going to be on my team. And the phrase was, I forget what I asked him, but his response was, well, data security is not rocket science. So blah, 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 right? Whatever the rest was. And just the way he said it was like, man, you don't actually have passion for this,
Right.
right? Because you're right. It's not rocket science, but the way you answered the question just showed me like, yeah, you're smart, the technology, but you don't actually have a passion for this. And I don't want you then. I don't want the smartest person that's not passionate because I want somebody that's, yes, smart, going to do the right things, but the passion is going to drive them to keep going, right? Learn more things, pick on things, figure out. So I think it's a great answer, right? The passion is what got you into it.
I used to ask people in interviews, and still do, why do you want to be in security? Especially if they weren't in security before. Why do you want to be in security? And the wrong answer is because it pays well or because it's a great market to be in. It's not the wrong answer, but it's not the preferred answer for me. To your point, I'd rather take somebody with average skills with a really strong desire to do the right thing and to learn and to grow than somebody with really, really great skills who's just checking in and checking out every day. I'll take the former all day, every day.
Yeah, let's be real. Most folks work to live, not necessarily live to work, but you should still find some passion in your work for sure, hopefully.
It makes life a lot easier if you do, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
as an older guy, it makes, you don't want to hate your job. You don't want to hate getting out of bed every morning. And if you have passion for what you do, it makes life a lot easier.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, I like to ask this question of a lot of folks. I kind of think I know what your answer might be, and I'm going to ask it anyways. So, if you could go back in time, however many years, doesn't matter, and give yourself a piece of advice, what would that advice be? And would you take any different paths to where you are today?
Sure. I don't know if I'd take a different path. Maybe I would. And this is not going to be a technical answer. This is basically back of what we talked about earlier, right? We've known all along it was all about data protection, and we finally got validated by the AI. I think I would have had a lot more confidence back then that I was right, instead of accepting what I heard from other people that, everything we do is about data security, and that's just not true. So I think I would have had more confidence in myself back then and probably pushed harder. Not accepted no for an answer and just kept pushing and let the chips fall where they may. Because I think we were validated with the AI explosion, right? But we were right all along, and AI just proved it.
Man, that is an amazing answer. I like that. I have not had that answer yet, but you're right. Like I guess now that you said it, I'd probably go tell myself that too. Like, look, man, you're right. Just keep beating the drum. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and don't back off, right? If people don't accept that answer, then find people who did. Honestly, so.
Right. Well, Kevin, if folks want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
LinkedIn is still the best place to find me.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a great episode.
It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
And big thank you to the audience. Really hope you enjoyed the episode and learned something today. Please tell others in your network to follow and listen. This has been another exciting episode of Guardians of the Data. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Guardians of the Data. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes and more, visit guardiansofthedata.show. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Centro. To see how we help organizations discover and classify all of their data accurately and automatically while quickly achieving petabyte-scale data protection without the fuss, please visit centro.io. Catch you next time.